And good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Here Now videocast. Today I'm with my dear, beautiful, amazing friend, Patrizia Lucchetta. I had to practice that one. Um, yeah, I did a post a few weeks ago on LinkedIn and it resonated a lot with Patrizia, right?
Yes, it did.
And we had we're here to talk about differences, but we had a similar view on the current world status and how different situations around the world are triggering very individual responses that are causing a lot more contribution to the situation than actually healing the situations. And on that note, we decided let's sit down for a few minutes and talk about that and see what I was sharing and differences, even though we have the similar view on what's needed and in terms of the individual perspective rather than and contributing to the collective. And so we're sitting down today to have a discussion, and we'll see what comes from it. We're wanting to bring awareness to the contradictions and the conflicts in the self that are projected onto the world and how the situations in the world are showing each individual just exactly where they stand in terms of their own, what's the French word?
Mal-être.
Mal-être. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, I can. So I will be very brief. I don't want to go too much into professional. So I think I can say I've done it all. I went from private to public to self-employed, which I am still to this day. I think for the purpose of this conversation that we're having, what is maybe more relevant to know and more relevant for me is the fact that I'm a child of immigration and that my parents moved to Luxembourg right a couple of months before I was born. And so I'm part of those people who are always torn between cultures, torn between allegiances, and who need to adapt. And my way of adapting was actually to continue to move out of Luxembourg and go work in different places. I ended up back here in the end, but it's not my final destination. And I think that gives you another perspective on the world, and it also forces you to find points of references.
And thank you for that introduction. But just as you were saying that, when I wasn't born here, but being an immigrant, and you say that you're torn between allegiances, was
Yeah.
the word? In my time of knowing you, which is a few years now, I wonder if it's a tearing or are you working on integrating? Because I see you really bring people together. So what's that's the part of you that feels like torn? Because wherever I see you, wherever we connect, wherever even on the internet, you always have this thing where you're bringing different communities and different people together. And what is the tone for you to help the locals, immigrants, people born here, people who have come in, to help them understand like what's the difference between isolating and wanting to integrate and bring people together?
Well, that's maybe torn was the wrong word to use. I've always, and maybe it's really personal, I've never felt really at home anywhere. So it took me many, many years to figure out how to overcome this. And because at the end of the day, everyone wants to feel home somewhere. So when I was here, I really wanted to be in Italy, especially when I was younger. Then I moved out of Luxembourg, went to Germany, where it was nice. I liked it, but still, it wasn't home. Very long story short, some years ago, I finally understood that I am my home. I am my own home. And that changed a lot of things for me for the better. I understood that I'm just unique in the way that I am, that maybe I was never meant to be in any place, that I'm always in between two chairs and always ready to go if needed or if I feel like it, and that I am my own home.
On that note, which
Yeah.
is like we decided to run this in flow.
Yeah.
But as you say that, in the moment when we met this morning, we were talking about the elevation of the individual, the soul, whatever you want to call it. And we're saying that there's this feeling of loneliness that comes from letting go of the egoic self, and this feeling of needing to be connected to something somewhere.
Yeah.
And what that does, and I guess this is going to tie into basically the message we're wanting to work on today, right? But when you say that, and then we shared the moment this morning when you came in about this feeling that comes with letting go of the pain, the suffering, the ego. But the higher you go in your vibration, in spirituality, again, no names to lock it, to box it in, but you do have this loneliness, but the loneliness at the same time reminds you that home is really here more than anywhere else, right? Is that kind of like what I thought you were saying?
It is. It is. It's really
a hard concept to grasp, right?
It's very hard to grasp, and I think you can only grasp it when you experience it yourself. So I've had. I think for me this came funny enough. So I really traveled all over the world. I never went to Australia, but for the rest,
not yet.
I think not yet. I've made it all. I'm afraid of snakes and spiders, so I'm a bit reluctant, but maybe. But so funny enough, the first time that I felt a feeling like of belonging to the earth, like really a physical sense of belonging, was the first time, I think I told you, the first time I traveled to Israel, and especially when I went up to Jerusalem, I just like felt that I was living history, that I was there where everything was born. And that kind of brought me home to myself. And the second, and so this was back in 2010, I would say. So it's a while. And the second thing is, I'm Italian, so Italian family, very Catholic. I grew up in Catholic groups because also it was the only place where I could go out. That's one. But also I must say I met some amazing priests and some amazing nuns, to the point that as a child I actually wanted to become a missionary nun.
That's so cool.
It was very cool because one of the reasons why I wanted to travel, and B, I didn't see the point of having to be married to travel. So I thought like a nun would actually be a perfect way, but it didn't happen. But then, 17, 18, I kind of distanced myself, and I started questioning a lot of things because especially in Catholicism, you have all these dogmas. And I have a hard time with dogma. I like to be able to question everything. And so at some point, I must say, I started looking into Judaism because Judaism has this tradition of questioning. But then I'm like, but I'm not, like, I don't feel like it's a matter of changing religion here. And then very recently, with the different, very ugly conflicts that we're witnessing now, I actually, for whatever reason, felt the need to go back to church, not to attend mass, but every morning on my way to coffee, and you know where I have my coffee, there is a nice church in between my flat and the coffee place, so I go in. And so I like to say that to some extent I'm finding back to my roots right now, so that's the phase of my life.
And feeling into what you've just been sharing, something that stood out for me, which I guess I would like to believe is a reason why the collective is suffering so much, is the inability to question, which is what religion does, right? I get that. Growing up religious myself, it does put you, like, it really fixates you into a certain way of thinking, which actually inhibits more fear and distrust of the self. But that growth mindset, that ability to question, it might seem like it creates doubt, but it actually it's a strength, right? Because you don't have to buy into a belief, who's wrong, who's right, take a side, which is kind of what we like saying. Everybody's so polarized at the moment,
Yeah.
right? He's wrong, she's right, he's right, she's wrong. And it's causing so much angst in each individual that the whole collective is suffering.
Yeah.
But that quality that you have, that you spoke about, I believe that's superpowered to a degree, right?
I don't know why I've always said it, because it definitely wasn't present in my family.
The ability to be curious, to question everything,
to question,
right?
To wanting to question.
What is it that we want to bring, that you believe you have, that this quality?
So for me, I think it's very important. I think we all want security and certainty. That's something I think everyone is craving, that, because it gives you a stable basis to do whatever you want or have to do in life. But the truth is, it's a dream. It's not reality. I think it became clear to me during COVID. You know, all of a sudden there was this polarization between yes to vaccine, no to vaccine.
Yes.
And it's like, and then I heard a lot of sentences like, oh, but science is a lie. 10 years ago they told us this, and now we know it's not true. But actually, it's not a lie. Science, and Karl Popper put it to the point, and Spinoza before him, is like to try to disprove a theory, because at any moment in time you have a certain knowledge based on what you observe, based on what you have learned, and then over time you get new information, and that new information will allow you to understand that what you thought was exact isn't that.
Exactly.
And you need to be able to live that. There is no 100% security on anything. And yes, it is difficult to live with this thought, but just pretending that everything in the world is a lie and I'm finding my own truth, that cannot be. And I will mention, unfortunately, that survey was taken away. It was available online. It was a survey that Google did. It was a survey that Google did with young people, I think aged between 16 and 24, if I remember well. And they were asking about the consumption of media in terms of where do they get their news from. And not surprisingly, a big part of it was social media like TikTok and Instagram mainly. And then there was a follow-up question saying, so do you believe that what TikTok and Instagram tells you is the truth? And a very high percentage answered, we know it's not the truth, but we can relate to the person who's saying the things.
Oh, wow.
And that to me is a very scary,
isn't it?
It's a very dangerous path, because then we're looking for confirmation. We're doing exactly what the algorithm asks us to do.
Oh, wow.
So that to me was really, I mean, the numbers were not large, but I think it's actually a little bit what's happening. We have this need for comfort because so many things are insecure these days, from the economy to world stability.
And that's so interesting, because you see it with the polarization. Yeah. If a person just trusts the messenger, that's it. Even if the message is wrong, they will believe what they've been told, contrary to what they believe. Is that what? Yeah. That's so interesting. I never saw it like that.
So you basically, and maybe I'll bring it in now because we've been talking about it a lot, is like, we all, I think every one of us has phases where we don't know what's going to happen. So we feel bad, and it's this maletto, we feel bad about ourselves. We don't know where to belong, which way to go, what's going to happen tomorrow. And then it's easy to kind of numb this pain that we have by espousing a cause. And it can be climate, it can be taking side in a war, it can be anything. It can be vaccine, no vaccine, science, no science. And it's not helping. It's not helping you personally to grow, because you're just numbing something. You're just projecting on something else. And it's not helping the cause either, because you're contributing with your anxiety, with taking sides without maybe, having really taken the time to do your research and figure out what is happening. So the Chinese says we're living in interesting times. I wish we could live some less interesting times, more peaceful times right now.
I wonder, and this is again was tying into our little discussion before we started on here. I wonder if the times can be more peaceful if we create a different kind of mindset, heart set in each individual, and each individual starts to realize that what they're seeing externally, what side they're choosing, is actually indicating they maletra. That's the word, right?
Yeah.
And if you can see that, if you can pause, if you can stop your anger, your fear, your need for safety, and question beyond that, and ask, okay, what would it look like from the other side? Can I sit with the other side's opinion? Just sit with it. Don't buy it. Don't have to protest it. Don't have to post it on social media. Can I sit in the safety of a room, my home, somewhere, and just imagine what it's like on the other side? And see what my body says, because that information could be huge for each individual to understand their maletra, right? Yeah,
so it's the energy, it's the physicality of a situation. And it's not, I don't want to say it's the opposite, but it's also, I'm a bit appalled when I see some messages that are being repeated in the streets, but also on social media. And I'm like, if you sit down 10 minutes and try to connect the dots, you will realize that what you're saying cannot be true. It's an oversimplification. It's an oversimplification that, and you are being used. In the end of the day, you think you're doing something well, but you're actually being used, and it's not what it's supposed to be. I actually shared this morning on my Instagram story a statement by Yuval Noah Harari, who says, masses are rarely moved by the truth.
I 100% agree.
That's it. But what the whole web and social media have done is that all of a sudden everything and nothing is the truth. And even though I just said before that at any moment in time you have a certain snapshot of what is happening, this being said, there are some facts. There are still some facts.
Yes.
Even in history might have been written from a certain perspective, but that doesn't take facts away.
Yes.
And once we start confusing that, we are on a very, very dangerous path. And I must say, I feel kind of bad for my son and his friends, because I honestly do believe that if we continue down this path, they will experience war closer to home than we ever had in our lifetime. I know maybe I'm a bit...
No, we're sharing, really, because I'm sure a lot of people will resonate with that reality, right? I wonder, and feeling into that, and I had a friend a few weeks ago, and we sat and had a coffee, and he said to me, you got to choose sides. And like, I don't know what that means. Yes, I feel the fear of that reality, but at the same time, I choose to believe that there is a lot more goodness still. It's somehow just not in our faces. Like I guess there's both realities are true. There is the reality that things continue where they are. There is the consequences, which would be dire, and it's already dire for some people in the world right now. And we really empathize, and it's part of why we're talking about this. We feel for those who are in the reality of a dire situation. And what would it mean if that situation came to our reality? But at the same time, there's goodness, there's good people, but somehow there's not enough of a message to say, if you're in a mass, if you're in a crowd, question that. Because that lovely statement, right? The masses are often not driven by truth. Is it true?
Right? I personally, and again, I cannot explain it, I've always been very afraid of mass movements. To me, it's something, it's really not in my DNA. As soon as I see masses of people moving, it's not a good thing. And we've seen it in history on the left and on the right. It's not, left or right.
We're not here for left or right, by the way. There is no, we're not sitting on either side.
No, it's really, it's never, nothing good has come out of it, ever. It's better to sit down, really to stop and think. And I know, and it's a topic that I've mentioned several times, but I'll do it again today. Go ahead and read Marshall McLuhan, his book called Planet Gutenberg, where he really explains that this is a sociologist from the 70s, 80s. And he really explains like the world went from tribal. So you're telling a story. And then as you're telling the story increases and changes because it's being, conveyed by many people. But the effect remained limited because there was only so much you could travel by foot.
Yes.
And then comes the book, the print. And the simple fact of reading or of writing forces your brain to think, because it's an exercise. It's not, you don't read and you read and then you process it while you're reading it. And then from that, and he was referring mainly to television because internet was just starting at the time, he said, and then came the television. And so we went back to tribal at planetary level. You switch your TV on and you see a war happening in front of your eyes. And even though the war might be 2,000 kilometers away, you have the feeling that it's happening there.
Absolutely.
So you get this anxiety. You think, I need to do something. Second phase is you actually don't bother anymore because after you've seen it for a week every day, it loses an impact. And the third thing, it's a sentence that he coined and that I really liked. He said, the medium has become the message. It's no longer about the content, about the facts. It's like the medium is the message. And and of course, this has exploded with internet and social media. And I'm not sure that we're really aware of the structural changes that social media consumption is doing to our brains. You and me are still part of a generation that experienced analog. But yeah, we have generations of natives. I'm not saying that they're not good people, but we having a shift. And the shift is unprecedented in speed. So.
And what do you feel is like a remedy for that? Because a ship that steers off course, right, even though it's huge, it might take some time to redirect. But if we have steered off course of humanity, connection, spirituality, safety in self, what would be a redirect? What do you feel could be something that we could do collectively to start to redirect this awful direction we're going into?
I don't know. I mean, one is my remedy is very simple, is go back to reading a little bit. Try to read half an hour a day. Try to write 10 minutes a day. Just that exercise will probably help a lot. And read on paper. And the second, I don't know, the second thing is really, we need to get back from the extreme sides to the middle. It was Ricky Gervais, a comedian, was interviewed recently. And so the interviewer was saying, so what is worse, the far left or the far right? And he said, no, he said, after both. He said, what is terrible is that if you're a centrist, you're being accused. Why can I not be a centrist?
That's what my friend was saying to me. You have to choose a side. No, I'm okay in the middle. I don't want to take a side. I want to understand both sides and understand what's happening to me when I'm on both sides. What's happening inside of me when I go and take an extreme left perspective, and what happens to me when I take an extreme right perspective. How can I be with both and understand that that reaction is in me.
Yeah.
How can I be with that? And then make a decision on what I do and where I stand, right?
It's that, and then it's also the ability and the acceptance of getting a informed advice, or to getting information from different sources. There was this, I think she was a psychologist. The topic was different. It was about this theory that a child, as soon as the child can speak, should be able to make their own choices. So I'm like, I'm old school. I don't think
that. Okay.
I don't think, because I think that you grow because someone gives you a frame. Either you replicate the frame to some extent, it gives you direction, and then you rebel against the frame, and that shapes your character. This doesn't mean being authoritarian. This just means children love a routine. If they don't have a routine, they feel insecure. That's in French, you say, it's my opinion and I share it. But so the psychologist was trying to explain what it does to a child when it doesn't have any directions at all. And I think we can say it in general today with this, everything is okay, everything goes. So imagine you're sitting in a plane, there are big turbulences, the pilot comes out of the cabin and asks the passenger, what should I do? Would you like that?
You freak out. No.
You freak out.
And that's what we're doing with our kids.
We're doing with our kids, that's what we're doing with ourselves by running like headless chicken.
Ourselves, yeah, like that.
I mean, at some point, you need to sit down and look at the facts that are available and accept things that you might not want to accept because they're not, they don't fit into.
And I feel in accepting things you don't want to accept is a real powerful place to be.
Yeah.
Because then you've broken out of that, the messenger is right, even if the message is wrong, you've broken out of that.
Yeah.
I'm in fear, I need to trust something or someone. It's a big challenge, but I believe it's one of the best ways to really get that fear, to get over the fear, and to break free of I'm extreme left, I'm extreme right, and if you're not with me, then you're against me, right?
You need to be able to. If we're not able to confront that, we're just not going anywhere. And I know it's you're a coach. It's a challenge at personal level. The day you decide to do this work on yourself, it triggers a lot of things.
So much.
Your friends are going to change. You're going to be in a completely, you might no longer be in the same world than your parents or even your kids.
So much.
So a lot changes. And it's the same at group level. And that's what I was mentioning before we started the camera, is what I see in some young people is that they start espousing a cause because they don't feel well themselves about their place in society, maybe rightly so. But then you espouse a cause, you become part of a group, this group becomes the cause, and the group become part of your identity. And then it becomes very difficult to sit down and to maybe challenge what you think is true, because that means you're going to be isolated from that group. And one example I have as someone who grew up at a time where everyone was smoking everywhere. I had read this book in order to stop smoking, and the guy was saying, it's very challenging because if you're the first one in your group of friends to stop smoking, you'll be the one who will no longer be part of the group.
Exactly.
But the sentence that he said, and to this day is in me for many things, he said, what you need to do is to look at that differently. Don't see yourself as the one who's now isolated. See yourself as the one who had the strength to take that first step.
I love that so much. And as introspecting as you're sharing, And again, we were saying this loneliness that comes from starting to question yourself, starting to do this journey of who am I? What does it mean? What I'm seeing in the world? How is it showing me what's happening in me? And I don't know if the group dynamic is as strong as we were taught. I see something in my oldest daughter's school. They have this daycare, and when I go pick her up, it's so interesting for me to notice there's a lot of kids, and even my daughter, they can be alone. And then they go where they need to go to be with what they need to be. And I never understood that because growing up, you kind of had to fit in somewhere, even if you went to a group that didn't resonate with your with values and beliefs, but you needed to fit in. So you plugged in to a socket that didn't have the same voltage as what you needed. And I guess this is also what's causing this divide. I need to fit into a group, and this group has the most fear. There's the fear that resonates with me, so I join there. But I've been always individual, finally accepting it at this later stage in my life, that it's okay to walk alone. And when you're able to walk alone, you don't need to fit in. You just fit in wherever you go. And you can meet people at a coffee shop, and you can go to a networking event, and you can be okay wherever you go without this unmet need inside you to plug into anywhere just to fulfill something that is not good, right? You see that?
I see that.
There's a strength that comes from this journey of who am I and what am I really seeing and feeling in the world? What is it teaching me about where I need to heal and grow?
But it's a challenge. It's just as you were saying it, it reminded me of 5 days of leadership training that I did last year. And where this topic came up for me. And it reminded so much of a sentence that I heard over and over growing up in my own family, because I tended to be in this, I felt different. I just felt different and not belonging to my own family. And I would always hear this, oh, you think you're better than us. And that's what, to some extent, what you told me earlier, why do you make yourself smaller? Because I have this sentence is really present. And during this workshop, a bit of that happened. So it was a small group. But I didn't really feel that connected to the persons who came. You know, it's random. You don't know who's coming. Everyone comes for a good reason. But then, when the day came where they were looking at my case, in brackets, I got this comment a lot. You're so distant. We feel your distance. And on the spot, it didn't feel good to hear this sentence. But I'm like, then I thought, if I don't feel that connection, there is no connection. It doesn't mean that I don't like you, but I just didn't, I didn't get into that group.
I'm listening and wondering, and again, bringing it back to the polarization in the world right now. I wonder if it's on that side that needs to change something. Why is it the group that's right? If we're all connecting and you're not, why does it mean that we are kind of right and you're wrong? Right?
That's the question.
Isn't it maybe the group, because we have to admit the group dynamic is 9 times out of 10, it's something not good in a group dynamic, right? So we have this thing that the group is right and the individual is wrong. But I think now what I'm learning, the individual is not right or wrong, but the individual is stronger than the group.
I think we have to be able to accept. There is one author, I don't want to mention his name because for me he's being abused a lot. He's being used for something that is not okay. But one of the main tenet was the problem is that from little on, whether it's in a family, in a borough, in a city, in countries, we learn to define ourselves as opposed to the other one.
Exactly.
Instead of seeing the difference as something that is enriching.
Yes, that is very big. I resonate with that from Zimbabwe. You see it a lot. And if we use that as an analogy for the spiritual journey of the soul of the individual, that opposition can be the opposition the ego has towards the peace and liberation that the body is looking for, the soul is looking for, right? So it's me versus the ego, or the ego versus me, and the ego seems to win more often than not, which might be the group dynamic, right?
You see, this, well, you know Sadhguru, right? I love his no-nonsense approaches in video. And he had one, he said, you know what's the problem today? He said, everyone wants to be special.
Exactly.
You need to be special. I need, I don't know, to have 7 different identities, different clothing, different genders, everything. And I'm like, no, we're actually all the same. Really. Really.
Much more than we like to think, right?
Yes.
We all have fear, we all have anger, we all have resentment. But at the same time, we all have love, we all have kindness, we all have forgiveness. We all have the ability to reason, to question, to be curious.
Yeah.
And I think we're missing a lot of that emphasis on the other side. How can this situation, this is a question I love in my work, how can this situation teach me to be more loving? And it's so difficult because often you're seeing war, you're seeing fighting, you're seeing anger, and you're like, how can love come into this? Because this situation, it deserves anger, it deserves retribution. Like, no, that's not the solution. You're adding fuel to the fire. And if you want to be any solution to the fire, where can you generate love in this situation for you, for what you're feeling in response to that? Yeah.
It's complicated. I must say, for myself, I can only talk for myself. I share what I think, not necessarily publicly. I share it one-on-one. I think the only place where I really share more general stuff is on my Instagram stories, because I find it, as soon as you put anything anywhere where people can react, you're just giving a platform to all kinds of people who have a need to say the opposite or to share their frustration, and it doesn't help the cause. I mean, it just adds to the fuel. So I do it there, and I find it interesting that sometimes then I get interesting questions or comments from people that I know don't necessarily share my views, but they still interested in having a dialogue with me.
Which is nice as well, because it's rare. Nice. It's rare.
It's real.
As soon as you have a difference in opinion, you almost have an enemy, right? You create an imagined enemy when it's just a difference in opinion.
So for me, I mean, if I can touch just, I don't know, one person a week, it's fine, because that person is maybe going to start to think a bit differently. And
what is the message you wanted? What would you feel you really would like to say out loud? What do you feel the world needs to hear? What's your opinion that you'd like to share?
So one thing that I would really like to share is, and that's something that I'm observing now, I'm a history lover. So that's really something that I've always read, I like. And I would just like to, what I see right now is that history is being rewritten. To some extent, for a good reason, because again, history is always written by the side of those who are more powerful. Absolutely agree. However, part of those who are rewriting the history are doing exactly the same from another perspective. Exactly the same. So we're not advancing here. What has happened has been terrible. This being said, we focus only on a very small part of things that have happened.
Yes, it's true.
Which is also not correct.
It's true.
It's not correct because, I mean, no one is a saint on this planet. No matter which color you have, which religion you have, no one is a saint. So that is not correct. And I'm really wary about this turning the thing around. It's not helping. It's not helping. You create other resentments. And sometimes, and I will say it, I will be very blunt about this, I've always been the black sheep, the revolutionary in my family, in the school, everywhere. And now I find myself in a situation that because I am female, white, and straight, I'm on the conservative side of things necessarily. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that does not work for me. It doesn't work for me.
I like that.
Yeah. So that's my message.
I'm
still a revolutionary.
I'm joining sides. We'll start our own revolution, create our own group.
Yeah.
I do see the inverse of the polarization of what was once something we fought against. We've become, what's the saying from the Batman show? Yeah, you either live long enough, you either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, which is some of what history is, right? They write it and then they become the very thing that they were fighting against.
But I mean, there is a lot, my son studies archaeology, so we're visiting a lot of exhibitions. And we have this thing that wars and all of this crap was born with the nation state. No. Go see exhibition from the earliest human settlements. As soon as someone had a bit more land, a bit more grass, guess what? The next tribe is coming and trying to take it away. So I think we need to accept that it is in human nature, and what can we do to lessen this? Because it has very little to do with organized nation states or whatever. Of course it has to do, but what I mean, it's inside. It's inside. So we need to stop blaming others for what is happening.
Yes. Yeah. Especially on the individual level, because it's one thing that things do happen on a political, governmental, nationwide scale, but at the same time, what is happening in you is 100% your responsibility. Yeah. The anger you're spewing out, the anger you're allowing to propagate from you, you are part of the problem. So you cannot complain about the problem when you're becoming a part of the problem, right? So the minute you have a judgment about something, then you really have to question, am I contributing or am I really solving? Yeah. And question your fear, question your anger, because the polarization I feel is fueled by so much fear and anger. People are so afraid, so angry that, like you said, the need for control, the need for stability is so deceptive because it's false. Yeah. The only control and stability you have is in this apparatus, right? But nobody wants to take charge of that. You know, stop that war, stop him saying that, stop her saying that, so I can feel okay, right? No, just feel okay. And then see how you feel about the things that you detest and that you're so angry about, right? Yeah. Don't fix me, because that's too hard, but I hate them and fix that, and that's the problem, and this politician and this country and this person, like, okay. At the end of the day, all you're propagating is a victim mindset. Yes. You're making that fear stronger, and you become maybe worse than the problem. Yeah. Right. As my good friend Irene, that you know as well, tells me also every once in a while, Patrizia, just stop and breathe. Breathe. And maybe as we come to a close, that's something really important too. When we think about how the body, just the exhale alone, the writing, the reading, the grounding, just the breathing, in any situation where you're triggered, where you see things that your body says this is wrong and it must end, and in fact, not many people ask for endings. People want more to continue nowadays, but just notice just breathe, just breathe, exhale, spend time exhaling, and take a moment to recenter, and then see how what the situation looks like after. Yes. And maybe you need to repeat it a few times, but we cannot keep contributing to the problems we see by thinking that my anger is going to help, my resentment is going to help, my judgment of anything is going to help, right? It's not going to help. So breathe, people. Is that how we close? Yes. Yes. Listen to this thing, watch it, and then breathe. Breathe, exactly. And question everything. Question everything. Don't believe a single thing you see. Yes, please question it. Question and look for different sources, not just the same one. And from a marketing perspective, if you need support, speak to Patrizia. But if you need a professional, speak to me. Exactly. Can I give you a hug before we close? Of course. Thank you for watching. And like we were joking, but if you need to reach out to any of us for coffee, for support, to discuss, we're not here to polarize. We're here to centralize, to bring people together. And hopefully something in this message touches you. And if you want to debate, you want to discuss, we're very open to it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye.